All right, let's deep dive today
A deep dive.
into a world that's all around you but might be totally off your radar. The fascinating world of building regulations.
Ooh.
I know what you might be thinking. Building regulations.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of dry, right?
Well, it might seem that way at first glance, but trust me,
Okay.
understanding building regulations is like getting a backstage pass to how our cities and towns actually work.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
It's like a secret code
Hmm?
that unlocks the mysteries of all the structures we see every day.
Exactly. And we're here to be your guides.
Okay,
Decoding those mysteries.
awesome.
We'll be meeting the key players, like building officials and something called the authority having jurisdiction.
Ooh, that sounds very official.
It is official. Think of it like this. Every region has someone,
Right.
usually a government body, in charge of making sure all the buildings go up safely and according to the rules.
Right.
They're the ones making sure everyone plays by the same rule book.
So it's like they're the referees of the construction world.
That's a great way to put it. They're reviewing plans, handing out permits,
Right.
and making sure everything is up to code throughout the entire construction process.
Got it. So they're the enforcers.
Yeah.
And what about the rules themselves?
Okay.
What exactly is the difference between a building code and a permit?
Okay, imagine this. You're trying to bake a cake.
Okay.
You got your cookbook, which has all the general guidelines for baking, right? That's your building code.
Okay.
It sets the standards for safety, health,
Gotcha.
and everything in between.
Okay. That makes sense. So the building code is like the overall baking philosophy.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, to bake your specific cake, you need a recipe with exact measurements and instructions, right?
Right,
That's
right.
your permit.
Uh-huh.
It's like your personalized permission slip from the authority having jurisdiction to start building your specific project.
So you need to show them your recipe.
Mm-hmm.
Prove it follows the cookbook guidelines.
Yeah.
And then they'll give you the green light to start baking.
Baking, building.
Building.
Yes.
Perfect analogy.
And that permit process is super important.
Yeah.
It makes sure every building isn't just thrown together haphazardly.
Right now I got to ask,
Yeah.
why are these regulations even necessary? It seems like a lot of hoops to jump through.
It's the question a lot of people ask.
Yeah.
But honestly, building codes exist for one crucial reason: to protect people.
Right.
We're talking about lives here.
It's easy to forget that buildings are more than just concrete and steel. They house our families, our workplaces,
Exactly.
our communities.
Exactly. It's all about public safety.
Yeah.
Imagine if we didn't have rules around things like fire safety or structural stability.
I shudder to think, and I bet there are some pretty wild stories out there about what happens when those rules are ignored.
Oh, definitely. And that's a perfect segue into our next section, where we'll be exploring some real-world examples that highlight just how important these regulations really are.
Okay, before we get to those gripping tales,
Hmm.
let's clarify one thing.
Okay.
It's not just one set of rules everyone follows, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned different levels of government being involved.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Right.
You've got regulations at the local level, like zoning rules that dictate where you can build and how high you can go.
Okay.
Then you've got broader regulations at the provincial or state level,
Right.
and sometimes even national regulations for really specialized buildings.
So it's a whole web of regulations.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how that could get pretty confusing for someone trying to navigate it all.
It can definitely feel overwhelming,
Right.
but that's where architects and other building professionals come in.
Okay.
They're like expert guides who can help you make sense of it all.
Speaking of architects,
Yeah.
their role in all of this is pretty fascinating, right? They're not just designing beautiful buildings. They're also navigating this complex world of regulations.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we'll be diving into next. We'll uncover how architects act as translators between design aspirations
Yes.
and those all-important safety requirements.
Awesome.
Get ready for some serious insights into the creative dance between art and regulations.
Sounds good.
Okay, so are you ready for some real-world stories that illustrate just how crucial building regulations are?
Oh, I'm all ears.
Because believe me, when these rules are ignored,
Yeah.
the consequences can be devastating. Okay,
Yeah.
Picture this: Bangladesh, 2013.
Okay.
An 8-story building called Rana Plaza,
Mhm.
packed with garment factories,
Oh.
suddenly collapses.
Oh my gosh.
Over 1,000 people lose their lives and countless others are injured.
Oh, that's terrible.
It was a horrific tragedy
Yeah.
that sent shockwaves around the world.
So what caused such a catastrophic collapse? Was
Yeah.
it just a freak accident?
Sadly, it wasn't a freak accident at all.
Right.
Investigations revealed a whole chain of failures,
Sorry.
all stemming from a blatant disregard for building codes.
Oh, wow.
They had added extra floors without proper structural support, used subpar materials, and basically cut every corner imaginable.
It's a chilling reminder that behind those seemingly dry regulations are real lives at stake.
Exactly.
Those codes exist for a reason.
Exactly. And while Rana Plaza is a particularly horrific example,
Sure.
it highlights a much bigger issue. Ignoring even seemingly minor code violations can have catastrophic consequences.
Right.
It's not just about avoiding major disasters. It's
Yeah.
about creating a baseline of safety in every building.
Right. It's like building a culture of safety brick by brick,
Mm-hmm.
regulation by regulation.
You got it.
It's about preventing those what-if scenarios from becoming tragic realities.
Precisely. Think about fire safety regulations, for example.
Right.
Sprinkler systems, fire-resistant materials, clear exit routes. All these measures, mandated by building codes, have saved countless lives.
That's very true. We often take those things for granted,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not just there by chance.
Right.
Someone thought long and hard about how to make buildings safer in case of a fire.
Absolutely. And the impact goes beyond preventing catastrophic events.
Yeah.
Building codes also play a huge role in ensuring the well-being of everyone who uses a building.
Oh, you're talking about things like accessibility for people with disabilities.
Exactly. Building codes have been instrumental in making buildings more inclusive.
Yeah.
Ramps, elevators, accessible restrooms, clear signage, all those features are standard requirements now, thanks to these regulations.
Right. So it's about creating a built environment where everyone can participate fully and safely.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And these considerations extend beyond physical accessibility.
Okay.
Building codes address things like ventilation and air quality, which can drastically affect people's health, especially in sensitive environments like hospitals or schools.
Right. It's all connected. So we've got safety, accessibility, health building codes, really touch on so many aspects of our lives.
It does.
But I imagine keeping up with all these regulations must be a challenge, especially with new technologies and building practices constantly emerging.
You're right. Building codes are constantly evolving to keep pace with the latest advancements and address new challenges.
What are some of the trends shaping building regulations today? What's on the horizon for this ever-evolving field?
One major trend is the push for sustainability and energy efficiency.
Okay.
As we become more aware of the environmental impact of buildings,
Mm-hmm.
codes are being updated to promote green building practices.
So things like energy-efficient windows,
Mm-hmm.
better insulation, and even incorporating renewable energy sources like solar panels.
Yep.
It's all about reducing the carbon footprint of our built environment.
Exactly. We're also seeing a growing focus on resilience,
Okay.
designing buildings that can withstand natural disasters like earthquakes or hurricanes.
Right. It makes sense. As climate change brings more extreme weather events, our buildings need to be prepared to weather the storm, literally.
Absolutely. And then,
Yeah.
of course, there's the rise of technology. Think smart buildings, integrated sensors, automation. All these advancements are pushing the boundaries of what's possible in construction,
Yeah.
which means regulators need to adapt as well.
It sounds like a fascinating but complex balancing act, fostering innovation while still ensuring safety and sustainability.
It is. And speaking of balancing acts,
Yeah.
one of the most important players in this whole world of building regulations is the architect.
Right.
They're the ones who have to translate those complex codes
Okay.
into beautiful and functional spaces.
So we've uncovered so much about building regulations already,
We have.
from the foundational why
Mm-hmm.
to those real-world examples of what can happen when things go wrong.
Right.
But now I want to turn our attention to the architect,
Yes.
who plays a really pivotal role in this whole process.
Absolutely. The architect, often seen as the creative visionary,
Right?
the artist sketching dream homes and soaring skyscrapers,
Mm-hmm.
but their role goes way beyond just aesthetics. They're the bridge between those design aspirations and the sometimes rigid world of building regulations.
So it sounds like a delicate balancing act.
It is.
How do architects even begin to navigate this complex interplay of creativity and compliance?
Well, it all starts with research. Deep, meticulous research.
Okay.
They have to become experts in the specific regulations for their project's location, building type, and intended use.
Right.
Remember, those codes can vary wildly depending on where you are and what you're building.
So an architect designing a sleek, modern office tower in a bustling city center faces a totally different set of challenges than someone designing a cozy, sustainable cabin in a remote mountain village.
Exactly. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
Once they have a firm grasp of the regulatory landscape,
Yeah.
they have to start weaving those requirements into the very fabric of their design.
So it's not just about tacking on safety features as an afterthought.
No,
It's about incorporating those considerations from the very beginning.
absolutely. Architects need to think about fire exits, structural load-bearing capacity, ventilation systems, accessibility features,
Yeah.
all while ensuring the building is functional, beautiful,
Right?
and meets the client's vision.
Oh, wow.
It's like solving a multidimensional puzzle.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is.
I imagine those regulations sometimes feel like limitations,
Yeah.
like they're stifling creativity.
You know, it's funny you should say that because sometimes those constraints actually spark innovation.
Really?
When architects are forced to think within a specific set of rules, they often come up with incredibly creative solutions that they might not have discovered otherwise.
So it's like those regulations become part of the design palette, pushing architects to think outside the box and come up with truly unique solutions.
Exactly. It's a beautiful example of how limitations can actually fuel creativity.
I like that.
And the architect's role doesn't stop at the design phase.
Okay.
They're often involved throughout the entire construction process,
Right.
working closely with contractors and those building officials we talked about earlier to make sure everything is built according to plan and code.
So they're like the guardians of the design, making sure the final product reflects their vision
Yes,
while also adhering to all those essential safety and compliance requirements.
you got it. It's a demanding role, but one that's absolutely crucial for shaping the built environment we live in.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive,
We have.
from the foundational why of building regulation
Yes.
to the architect's intricate role in bringing it all to life. I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for the hidden framework that shapes our world.
Me too. And hopefully you, the listener, now have a newfound awareness of the thought, care,
Yeah.
and yes, even creativity that goes into creating the spaces we inhabit every day.
It's a reminder that buildings aren't just static structures.
Right.
They're products of a complex interplay of safety, design, human ingenuity, and a whole lot of regulations.
And as our world continues to evolve, so too will the regulations that govern it.
Right.
So stay curious, keep exploring, and always appreciate the intricate dance between rules and creativity that shapes the places we call home.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating journey behind the scenes of building regulations.
It was fun.
Until next time.